just conform. Madness and chaos.
Victory is my main. When the fire falls, don't be surprised, I will still rise.
Yes, Sir Hairless here. Today we are back with a patron request. This is Rise, a Katy Perry cover. We've got a number of performers here, so I'll go through them. We have SUPERFRUIT, finally. SUPERFRUIT is Scott and Mitch from Pentatonix. They've been on my list for many months, since my first Pentatonix reaction really. People recommended them to me. Mary Lambert, I don't know her. Brian Justin Crum, I have heard of him and I'll probably speak about that later, and Mario Jose. We have seen him before singing Lost on You with Scott. Please check out my reaction to that if you haven't already and or want to hear him and Scott sing before we get into this one. So that's who we'll be seeing today. Thank you to Christopher for this request. I must have been living under a rock because I don't know the original song. I listened to it a couple of times just now and I quite like it. It's very, what's the word? Inspirational? Like it would be good in a film soundtrack or something. I imagine futuristic warfare or space warfare or something like that.
When the fire's at my feet again.
On screen now is the description of this video we'll be watching. Christopher asked me to make sure I read this, so please pause and have a read of it. This video is from September of 2016 and it was made in response to the Pulse nightclub shooting that happened in June of that year. Katy Perry's video was released on YouTube in August of the same year, so they're all very close together. The shooting, awful. 49 people were murdered. The nightclub was a gay nightclub, so the description on screen again now hopefully makes sense as a response. Finally, the lyrics are on screen for you, so once you've had a pause and a read, we'll get straight into it.
I won't just survive, oh you will see me thrive. Can write my story, I'm beyond the archetype.
I won't just conform, no matter how you shake my core, 'cause my roots they run deep.
Oh, you have so little faith.
Don't doubt it, don't doubt it.
Oh, victory is in my veins.
I know it, I know it.
And now I'll not negotiate.
I'll fight it,
I will transform. When the fire's at my feet again, and the vultures all start circling, they're whispering, you're out of time, but still I rise. There is no mistake, no.
Oh, they've handed over from Brian to Mario here mid-verse like Scott did to Mitch at the start. I'm going to pause here for a quick analysis because this is quite fast-paced. I have stuff to say I don't want to forget, so if you don't want to hear my analysis, go to the timestamp. In short, before we get into the analysis, I'm liking it so far. The singers, well, this is my first time hearing Brian. I'll get onto that in a bit, but it seems like the choice of singers here is really, really good. The arrangement, great, especially compared to the original song. So, speaking of the original song, they are singing in the same key. Scott is just singing down an octave from Katy Perry. The original song, it starts with this intense bass heavy sound. It's quite dark.
I won't just.
Then Katy Perry comes in and suddenly the sound is transformed into the major. Still bass heavy, but far less foreboding. I'm sure we can all agree.
Survive. Oh, you will see me.
It really reminds me of the sad cat memes. Let me find it. I don't have TikTok or anything, but I've seen some videos on the internet using that music, mostly little cats being sad. The original song is Billie Eilish, What Was I Made For?
I used to float, now I just fall down.
Obviously, Katy Perry's song came many years before the Billie Eilish song. Anyway, unlike the original, the opening we just heard, in this, Scott comes in solo, a cappella. There's no foreboding bass sound. The arrangement is calm, simple piano accompaniment in chords.
I won't just survive, oh, you will see me thrive.
Even though they're very simple chords with few notes, they still have dissonance because of the chords chosen. Let's hop to the piano so we can see these chords visually. When you see me playing notes together, no more than 2 notes apart, they are the ones that are causing dissonance. These basically make the chords a bit non-standard, and they are subtle dissonances. To go into a tiny bit more technical detail for anyone who's interested, the chords are B, F sharp, A sharp, D sharp minor. Quite a peculiar progression, especially the change to A sharp. It completely shifts the mood. This B chord has a C sharp in it. That's the second note, otherwise known as the supertonic. I mention that often in my pentatonics videos. The F sharp chord, this is a standard one, just the third note is on the bottom instead of the root note. This A sharp chord, it has a 4-3 suspension. So the fourth note suspending and then resolving down to the third note, which fits better in the chord. But this chord also contains another non-standard note. It's the 7th note, which means that this is now an A sharp 7 chord. And the D sharp minor chord is a standard chord. So the last chord there is the only truly standard chord in this seemingly very simple opening. Because of this, right from the off, there is tension. We can feel it, and it's very subtle and different to Katy Perry's method of tension, which is, you know, this grungy, dark, deep bass feeling. So we then get a handover from Scott to Mitch.
Under archetype,
I won't just conform.
Moved up in pitch, up an octave, so Mitch can really nicely move from his chest voice into his head voice, and then he finishes the phrase in that lovely, unique, blended voice of his. It's the perfect range for him.
No matter how you shake my core.
The chords are filled out a bit more now, a bit of gradual growth, which really accompanies the move upwards in pitch from Scott to Mitch as well.
'Cause my roots, they run deep.
I like how they very temporarily cut to Scott kind of breaking out into this half smile, like a smile of appreciation. Then we get a croak from Scott. This marks a change into now the upbeat, very rhythmic accompaniment driven by the bass line in the piano. We have syncopated rhythms. Melodically, it's jumping about a fair bit.
oh, you've so little faith.
Don't doubt it, don't doubt it.
Oh, victories in my veins.
I know it, I know it.
Also a very nice call and response between Scott and Mitch, the SUPERFRUIT members. Right, and then we get Brian entering.
When the fire's at my feet again.
Wow, what a voice. I've seen the name mentioned before. He was on my list, his America's Got Talent audition, in which he sung Creep. In fact, that performance was actually in my recent members poll, narrowly missing out to Johnny Cash by a couple of votes. So had Brian won, I would have been introduced to him there. If you are interested, by the way, in participating in such polls, please head over to Patreon and join the community there, or join my YouTube membership. Both are linked in the description. So yeah, this is a really nice introduction to Brian, I think.
And the vultures all start circling.
Such a naturally high set chest voice. Definitely a voice more suited for belting high up there. He's choosing to use a flat tone rather than vibrato, the voice wobbles on these higher notes. Naturally, because it's more difficult to be in tune with flat tone, it makes tuning a bit more difficult, but he's spot on.
Whispering, you're out of time.
Nice little smidgens of vibrato here just before we pause, just after that little crack that he does with his voice. Alright, this is where we got to. Let's carry on from Mario's entry.
But still I rise. There is no mistake, no accident. When you think the final nail is in.
must stay conscious through the madness and chaos. So I call on my angels. They say,
Oh, you have so little faith. Don't doubt it, don't doubt it. Victory is in my veins. You know it, you know it. And you will not negotiate. Just fight it, just fight it. And be transformed.
Wow, nice. I sense this is going to get very large now. We're about 2/3 of the way. I'm going to do my second pause. When we do continue, I'll rewind about 10 seconds or so we can continue from that nice descending layered arpeggio bit. Alright, back we go to Mario's entry. We've heard him before, but yeah, just such a cool timbre I think he has. There's almost like a physical texture to his voice.
There is no mistake, no accident.
Ever so slightly rough, coarse, but also smooth somehow. He chooses to match Brian through using the flat tone instead of the vibrato that I mentioned before on these higher notes.
Final melisande, think again.
That makes their harmony that much more powerful, almost piercing, sort of. Just on this note of two singers matching each other when they're singing in harmony with each other. Let's go back to the first part. There was a little bit between Scott and Mitch that I didn't mention. So when I play this, listen to how they both use a flat tone for the first part, and then the second part they both implement vibrato.
I will transform.
If they don't do the same thing as each other, then the sound might seem a little bit more disconnected. After Mario, we get our first intro to Mary Lambert. Don't know her, but I like her voice. I like what she does here. She's sliding between the notes. She implements air on the higher notes.
I must stay conscious through the madness and chaos.
It creates a really soothing and soft sound as we return to this calmer, overtly major section. And in this section, the tension that we spoke about before is seemingly released, only temporarily though, because of what comes next. The accompanying oohs in harmony by the other guys, yeah, I just think they suit the part really well.
Through the madness and chaos, so I call on my angels. They say,
There on Angels, Mary cuts out mid-word.
my angels. They say,
And this is where we get that really peculiar, almost jarring change to the A sharp chord. It's just not expected, that harmonic change. And we can see Mary's face change there as she crescendos through, so do all the other parts.
angels. They say.
And then the arrangement, it just gets really full. We have the piano, we have Mary and Scott singing together, we have Mitch.
So little faith, don't doubt it, don't doubt it. Victory is in my veins. You know it, you know it.
Brian and Mario singing the oohs together, but it sounds like multi-tracking might be used here. More voices, a much fuller sound.
Don't doubt it, victory is in my veins. You know it, you know it.
Actually, I'm going to retract that statement, but the fact that I even thought it is a good thing. It just shows how full the sound is. The arrangement, it's opening up even more. It seemed to be when I paused. I literally just said how full the arrangement seems, but oh no, it seems like it's going to get much more full. There's clearly room for it to get bigger and better.
Be transformed.
Wow, I didn't know what to expect. Katy Perry song. I did like it when I listened just before. I'd never heard Brian or Mary before. I know Scott and Mitch, and I've heard Mario before. Yeah, I've really enjoyed that. Very powerful, very powerful. And them as singers, a collection of who they've chosen, just, it worked really well. I mean, let's go over that final third. Quite a bit different to the start, for example. Yeah, so here, there's something very powerful about one voice alone belting out, followed by all the others coming in, moving down in parallel motion together. They are just outlining one chord, even though they're changing. The chord itself doesn't change. They just take over different notes each. For example, so these are the three main notes of the chord, and then they all move down, and then again. So in quick succession. The next chord, the same idea, but slightly different to account for the actual change in harmony now. Who's that on the high part? It could literally be any of them. In falsetto or Mary. Yeah, as I said before, it's a good choice of collection of singers here because of their voices, namely their ranges and their timbres as well. I mean, when I was listening, I was thinking it was Mitch taking the high part. And then a bit further on we get this. That's not the highest, but it's his ability to do it with a blended voice rather than pure head voice that makes it and his sound so unique. And after his long note, he descends with a hemiola, so 3 notes of equal rhythms played in the space of 2 notes usually. Don't doubt it. Chun chun chun. And now the sound really is so full, it's just massive. A massive sound, but it's very much made up of individual lines. We have a mix of rhythmic jumpy piano, sustained chordal accompanying parts, cross rhythms and syncopations in the other vocal parts, softer vocal lines like Mitch's little run there versus the heavier, louder lines. Yeah, and then it all culminates in some very nice 3-part homophony, a cappella, and it's also interesting how they all sort of do a glottal stop in between each chord change, even though they're just singing the ah of rise. And yeah, nice ending. Solo voice at the end, quite a statement.
You're out of time, but still I rise.
With the unison line on "You're out of time" just before. So it's this kind of gradual diminishing from massive sound individual lines to homophony, unison, solo line, which is how we started with the solo line in Scott. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. That was quite a powerful performance, wasn't it? I love the aesthetic of this as well, similar to how Scott and Mario had with Lost on You. Nice introduction to Brian and to Mary Lambert. Not really heard much of her before. Superfruit, I've heard a lot about. I've received a lot of requests for them. Superfruit are now on the Hairless channel. Yeah, a very touching response to a really horrific event in the shooting. I think let's leave that one there. I'm going to go and listen to this a few more times. As always, thank you very much for watching. Would appreciate a like and subscribe. If you enjoy my content, want to support me, join the community, vote on future polls and get access to exclusive content, please join the Patreon linked on the screen now. And I will see you next time.